SwiftUI Alerts are one of the most direct ways to talk to your user. They interrupt, demand attention, and can also guide critical decisions. In this video, we're going to cover how to implement alerts properly, avoid common pitfalls, and use them in modern, reusable ways. So let's go ahead and dive on in. So let's talk about the three different types of alerts. We have the basic alert. This is just something that kind of pops up, and we can't click anywhere until we give the OK confirmation. We also have the delete and cancel rules, which are a little bit more destructive. So for this one, in case we want to delete our account, we can see we have the cancel, which does nothing, or the delete that's notified in red that demands that action. In this case, it would have deleted our account. We also have the confirmation dialog, and this actually allows us to have multiple options for non-crucial choices. So option A, option B, or cancel. So if you're interested in learning how to implement these into your app, let's go ahead and dive on in. I'll also have this example in the description below on my GitHub pages if you want to download and see all these different screens at a glance. So why should we use alerts? Use them when you need the user to decide now before continuing. So a classic example is confirming any irreversible actions. So I'd recommend creating a state private variable. And this can control whether the alert is shown or not. So we can just call it something like show alert. If you have multiple alerts, make sure that you name them appropriately. And we're going to be using a Boolean value of true or false. I'm going to get rid of our placeholders here in the VStack. And let's go ahead and create a button. Now you can trigger this however you need. Maybe it's an on appear or on when a certain condition is met. I'm just going to be triggering them with buttons today. So in this case, maybe we have a delete file. So for us, we'll simply flip the condition to now be true. Now, if we press this, nothing quite happens. We need to now hook this up to an alert. So after the braces of the button, we can use dot alert, and then we can pass through some information. So the first thing that we're going to add is the title. We can, say that, are you sure you want to delete this file? Now, before we get out of the brackets, we'll want to use our comma, and we're going to hook this up to the isPresented, and with our binding, we're going to reference our state private variable of show alert. So now we kind of have our title and when we're controlling how it's presented. We're going to go ahead and add our brace, and from here we can add two options. The first button we're going to add on our alert is going to be the delete. Now it's important to also, after the string of what this shows, to assign it a role. So after the string, add a comma, and add the role, and then add a colon. So from here, we can use dot notation. We can see that we have cancel, close, confirm, and destructive by default. Destructive is a tag when we're going to actually be removing or deleting something. And you'll notice that when you do have these, they're typically in that bold red. So the user's like, oh, I gotta be careful about this. You could then add a brace and include any logic that you'd like. So any actual delete logic would go here. We can add another button. And for this one, we're just going to have this be cancel. Again, we're going to assign it a role. We can use our dot notation to just see that we actually have a cancel role. Make sure that you add the braces after. Mine are empty, but for the cancel, we shouldn't need any real logic. So let's press the delete file. We can now see on our preview, are you sure you want to delete this file? We have the cancel and delete. And again, because this was destructive, it has that red really warning the users what's about to happen. So make sure that you're hooking it up to the proper logic, otherwise cancel just gets us on out of here. If you want a really basic alert, again, you're going to want that show alert variable, state private variable. I'm just going to change this button to instead be show alert. And we can simply just put one button this time. So if we wanted to say like, hello, SwiftUI, right? We can just assign it to the role and we would do dot cancel. So this is a really good idea if you're just informing user that something's happened. Now you will need to, after all these buttons, include a brace. You can handle any logic that you need to here, but this is just a good idea if you're trying to just prompt someone that something happened. So maybe it's even like logic has been saved, right? Maybe you have like a profile and you can like upload a picture, and once it's done, you can get that confirmation that something's been saved, and then they can be like, oh, sure. But you can customize what that button says, right? In the case of where we had the cancel and delete, we were saying this is what they want, this is what I want them to say. This could then be, proceed to menu. You really have full control of what you're presenting to the user. Remember, it's bound to that Boolean value. So you don't always have to use a button in order to flip that state. It could be some other logic in your code. Let's quickly talk about these different roles. So we have a few options. We have cancel, close, confirm, destructive. For cancel, this is a role that indicates that a button is going to cancel an operation. Close, it's going to suggest it's going to close the operation. Confirm is something that indicating that it's going to confirm an operation. So like submitting, are you sure you want to submit your password? Confirm. And destructive indicates that it's something that is going to remove something. And what's pretty cool, so say we actually only have the destructive role. So if I were to comment this off and we only have destructive, you'll notice that it's actually going to provide us a cancel button by default, which is really great. This way, the pop-up isn't just forcing you only to have something that's destructive, right? If we're tagging as destructive, in this case, we're assuming that's deleting the account. So even though I've commented this off, it's still like, no, I'm giving you a cancel option. You're allowed to get out of here. And if we were to press the delete button, again, we have the logic that's handled within here. In this case, the account being deleted or the cancellation of that action. Now we can also choose to include a message as well. So if we were to go to the end of the alert here, we can add a message. And from here, we can actually include some text. So if I want to say this action cannot be undone, that seems like a good message for when we're deleting. Oh, even are you sure? That's nice. We can see here now, I'll zoom in a little bit, we now have this little message underneath that's kind of in this gray. It says this action cannot be undone. Are you sure? This is another way to kind of guide users into what they're expected to be happening, maybe even a warning, just a nice little brief option. Okay, and now I quickly want to talk about the alert versus confirmation dialog. I'll just show you how to make a confirmation dialog really quickly. So for this one, it could be show options. This is really great when you want users to choose between things. It's going to also rename this to show dialog. So within our button, we'll just have our show dialog flip. And just like before with the alerts, outside of the button, we're going to do a .confirmationDialog. Now we can see here that we have tons and tons of different options. I'm going to choose the first autofill. We have the confirmation dialog, and then we have the title key. What do we want this to say to users? Well, I want this to be, choose an option. In your app, if this is choosing maybe like a setting, label it appropriately. We're then going to hook up the binding to our show dialog. We'll then add our brace. So for this one, we can again add those buttons. And let's go ahead and have option A. We then handle the logic here. So if I picked option A, maybe something happens to my account. Maybe I change to a black background. I don't know. It's up to you, whatever this might do in your app. We can have multiple options, right? And again, you'll just have that braces to choose what happens. You can also choose to include other buttons here. So I would always suggest having a cancel option as well. And just like with before, we can assign it to the role. And we would, of course, use close or cancel. Cancel probably makes the most sense. So now when we go ahead and run our app and we do the show options, you can see here that option A and option B are appearing. So for the alerts, I would use them for more critical, irreversible choices, or just notifying something major has happened, or even login confirmations. For the confirmation dialog that we just built, this is something that's a little bit better for a list of options, such as in settings, or if you're choosing between a couple different things, it's not intrusive. I can still click around, whereas the alerts, you're kind of locked into them. I would also keep any titles or messages short. Accessibility is actually also built in, so the voiceover reads everything, and don't abuse alerts. For any minor feedback, you can actually use a toast or snack bar, and I'll be covering those in a future video, of course. Now, before we wrap up, you may be saying, hey NDC, we have this confirmation dialog, choose option, but when I press it, I only see option A and B. What gives? Well, we can actually add further customization as well. So what I would do is after the is presented, I'd add a comma, and we can suggest the title visibility. Now we can choose it to be automatic, hidden, or visible. So if we're forcing this to be visible, we can see here, choose an option. You may also be thinking, can we add a message? And of course we can. So let's go ahead and at the end, add our message, and let's go ahead and display some text. These options, change your user settings. So now when we do the show options, we have our little gray, these options change your user settings message to pop up. Before we end this video, I want to talk a little bit about customization. There's tons of customization options you can do with these alerts. So here we have a delete workout. This can't be undone. We can customize what that text looks like. You may even want to have the little mini drag indicator with a custom capsule. You will see here that we don't totally need it. Oops, scroll a little bit too much. You don't totally need it, as there is actually the drag indicator. So you can choose to make your own with like a little capsule and a VStack, or enable or disable the presentation drag indicator here. You can also use labels for any of these. So if you want to be really, clear to the user that this would delete the workout, you can create a label. And you can choose to have like the text and like the trash icon if you really want. You can even choose to add a tint to these buttons so this delete stands out even more. You can also change the presentation to tense either with a custom height, or you can use things with, again, use dot notation where you can, with large, medium, if you'd really like to, and you can even choose a corner radius for this presentation. If you do large, it's like a huge pop-up sheet. You probably in most cases don't need that. The medium's a little bit more respectful, or again, you can use that custom height for full control. So this is what 240 would look like if we were to crank this up to maybe 360. We can see here that we're taking up more of that screen space. So just to go over everything one more time, alerts are powerful tools for guiding user decisions, but only when used sparingly and responsibly. Use them for those critical, high-stakes interactions and lean on confirmation dialogues or toasts for everything else. So if you enjoyed today's video, like, comment, and subscribe. Dream big, code bigger, and we'll see you in the next one.